Having a look at the story that Ricky Lambert, who is on our Flow News 24 desk and is our senior content producer, has compiled for us this morning. And he comes up with a headline, and I think this is an interesting one. Tourism spend was received well generally, but ABC was cynical. And there's been plenty of coverage about the $1.2 billion that has been announced by the federal government. And when it was announced this week, critics lined up, but others said, well, that it was a pretty good deal for Queensland particularly to get the ailing industry going, and it didn't show too much negativity towards a Labor state from a coalition federal government. Some said it wasn't enough money. However, it was also picked up that there was an attack by the ABC. It labelled the tourism fund as pork barrelling. The first story that ABC published on it, without any reference to any claim of anybody actually saying that there was pork barrelling, so it was a claim by the ABC itself, included a table that highlighted which of the subsidised airfare destinations in Queensland and Tasmania were in marginal seats. Yet a look at the analysis shows more than half of the destinations were in safe seats, including Avalon in a safe Labor seat and Corio, another of the safe Labor seats. So it's rather intriguing that one would see pork barrelling there. But speaking from Avalon the next morning, Labor's Anthony Albanese pointed to the electoral map and said there was a correlation between the flights subsidised and where the Liberal Party needed to hold or might have hoped to win seats. What's disappointing here is twofold. First, that Mr Albanese would be cynical and frankly incorrect when regions need tourists to come back, particularly Queensland, who are slammed by their Premier playing politics before a state election, and since with border closures they've had a lot of negativity. Indeed, Andrew Constance, the New South Wales Treasurer, told reporters yesterday nobody should be doing Queensland any favours after their behaviour, particularly directed towards New South Wales. And look, to take a look at this one, the disappointment here must be that if you take a look at the list of seats that Mr Albanese has made his claim from after the ABC actually put the article together, which would sort of indicate that Mr Albanese's had the ABC doing the research for him almost, and that more than half of the seats are in fact safe seats, whichever party would win them, and that in the Northern Territory, a seat Lingiari would be a Labor win generally and hasn't been lost by Labor in a number of years. So one would think that the ABC is being cynical towards some of the rural seats particularly. It seems that rural seats here, the regions which mostly need tourism to come back to them in terms of getting their economies going, are ones that are getting the resources here, and they're not, in the case of the ones that have been selected, more likely to be Liberal than Labor. And if they are Liberal, they're strongholds for Liberal or coalition seats rather than pork barrelling towards a marginal seat in order to get it over the line at the next election. It appears that the ABC have missed the boat on this, writes Ricky Lambert, and I think he's got a fair point. The Prime Minister on the pork barrelling suggestion had this to say: it's absurd, that's ridiculous. The northern parts of Tasmania are the regional part of that state that needs that support. We already have lots of flights going into Hobart, but we haven't been able to get the flights to Launceston, hence the funding in that part of the world. And one suspects that this is a bit of a beat-up from Mr Albanese and struggling to lay a glove on Morrison in relation to the Tourism Benefit Fund, $1.2 billion, which in the main the critics basically said it wasn't enough, let alone some pork barrelling of too much in certain areas as outlined by media organisation the ABC. It should maybe stick to reporting how much money went to what place and where without commentary on what it thinks about those monies and where they're going in the suggestive way of pork barrelling.